Hello, I'm Kate Davis, and this is Humor in the C-Suite, a show about how leaders use humor to create an extraordinary work culture. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. My guest this week is Matt Kaufman. He is a Cornell University graduate who found that while school rewarded his intellect, summer camp reshaped his confidence, resilience, and connection to others. Now director of Camp Ramaquois in New York, he has witnessed that same steady transformation in thousands of young people and staff, prompting his exploration into what socially, emotionally, and neurologically makes camp such a powerful environment for growth. In his books, The Summer Camp MBA and The Campfire Effect, he blends leadership, insight, brain science, and decades of lived experience to explain how shared challenge, ritual, and everyday moments build trust and connection. Lessons that can apply far beyond camp into homes, schools, and workplaces. Through storytelling, practical insight, Matt helps parents, educators, and leaders understand how meaningful groups truly work. We had an incredible conversation. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this episode. It's so different, such a great perspective. Please welcome Matt Kaufman to Humor in the C-Suite. Oh, I am so excited to talk to you, get to know you, find out how you use humor. I thought we would just start off by telling everyone what you do and who you are.
So I'm a summer camp director and an author. I've spent every summer since I was 4 years old at my camp, which is a day camp right outside of New York City. And I've written 2 books, both about summer camp. But the most recent one is really about how to use what I've learned at summer camp and apply it to anything. So I think it's pretty applicable to your audience, who are hopefully running really awesome organizations.
Yes. It's so fascinating to me because just the analogy of it's summer camp MBA and then the campfire effect, right? So
Right.
those are his 2 books, everyone. You should go get them. But I do feel like I'm such a summer camp enthusiast. My best childhood memories are from summer camp. And I do feel like I apply a lot of it to my life in general, to build those meaningful relationships. Because once you get those relationships at camp, those are friends for life. Right. And it's
Yep,
so,
exactly.
yeah, so fascinating. So, how have you used humor, first of all, in your day to day life?
I use humor. Well, it's a summer camp, so we use humor a lot. That's what we do. We make people laugh. We make people happy. But I find that I use humor to diffuse situations that could be stressful. I'm very cognizant that humor and laughter reduces endorphins, which gives people the joy and the energy they need to keep going through hard times. So I don't think we can really be effective at our jobs if we're not laughing and we're not having fun. And I think that's something that I find people miss. It's that if you don't look like you're being serious, people think you're not working hard. And I'm a big Seinfeld fan. I don't know if you are,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I always think back to when George Costanza had that great line, when he said, the way that people think I'm doing a good job is I just look angry and upset all the time. And he he would, like, whenever someone walked into his office, he'd just be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're asking me to do this? I'm so busy. Oh my God."
Yeah.
So I think people often think you have to look like you're not enjoying work, but the best the best people, the best employees that I've always worked with are having a good time when they're doing their jobs.
I love that. And they're 12. No, I'm kidding. How old? So, can you give us an example of how you use humor within that leadership style?
So one thing we do is, during the summer, every morning we have a leadership meeting of our top. At this point, it's probably 8 or 9 staff members. These are our most key people, and every morning I get to work in the summer at 6 o'clock, and then at 7:30 we have a meeting, with our top leadership team that runs till 8 o'clock. And at the end of the meeting, we started this really stupid tradition, probably 10 years ago. And at the end of every meeting, we have to pick a number of words to say. And it depends on what week of camp we're in. So if it's week 1, we pick 1 word. If it's week 8, we pick 8 words. And
Oh,
I swear it's like the most important part of this meeting is coming up with these X number of words, and
wow.
and and it usually winds up being something that is such an inside joke that is just so silly and so
Yeah,
stupid, but it gets us. We all leave this meeting laughing hysterically, and
right.
I think that's really important to start your day like that. We go out,
Yeah,
we're all supervising a ton of other people, and
yeah,
we've just left this meeting that's theoretically the most important meeting that we have in the camp every day.
yeah.
And we've all left laughing. So I think just really gets us started off on the right foot.
Oh, that is so great. I love that. That is, you know what? I might actually use that in my next meeting. You got one
Good.
word, 2 weeks, you got 2 words. That's it. I love that. What a great thing. You're sort of translating it that, what you learn at camp, your leadership that you learn at camp, you can lead within a corporate environment within that. Right. So I feel
Right.
like your books are really for the people, maybe not a director of a summer camp, but, they're a leader in a business.
Yeah,
So, and
that's
just
that's
applying
exactly
that.
the whole point, right? It's
Yeah.
it's at camp we I think when I talk about leadership, and just for context, people sometimes think of summer camp as this nice utopian place where you roll out a kickball and everyone's really happy. But my camp, my camp,
Yeah.
for instance, we have over 500 employees every summer.
Wow.
So it's this really it's this crucible for figuring out how to lead people. And not all, but many of our employees, this is their first job. This is their first
Yeah.
level of responsibility. So it's really, you can't be a leader at camp unless you're very good at clearly explaining your instructions and being patient. And when I think about leadership, when people talk to me about leadership, I always think about it as creating an environment. You have to create the right environment for people to thrive.
Yeah.
So I'm much more that type of leader than, say, the charismatic leader standing on a hill and ordering
Yeah.
the troops forward. And I think that it's very interesting when you talk about creating an environment. And if I always say that people have to feel safe before they can
Hmm.
thrive.
Yeah.
So we always talk about creating that atmosphere of safety, and I think that humor has a lot to do with that because when you're humorous, you in a lot of ways make yourself vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Like when you tell a joke, it's extremely vulnerable because what if nobody laughs?
Yeah.
And a first step towards building trust is to create vulnerability, and there's sort of this, uh, symbiotic relationship between vulnerability and trust.
I love that. It's not even just telling the joke. You can show you have a sense of humor by the person laughing at the joke. Right. So you're building trust, I think, on both ends of that rope. Like it's not just one or the other. I think, even if you put yourself, it's not so much, is this funny, but how does this make the other person feel?
Right.
Right.
It's so true. It's so true. And the
Yeah.
types of jokes that you tell, it all has to do with vulnerability and building those relationships. And summer camp might be an extreme example of this, but we need to make people happy.
Yeah.
When they're not happy, they're not doing their job well, and that's certainly true in my job. But I think it's true in most jobs.
Yeah. No, 100%. I have to confess. So when my kids were younger, we didn't have a lot of money. And I loved camp when I was a kid, but camp got so expensive. And we sent them to the YMCA camp, but it was way cheaper on these 2 weeks that were hemophiliac weeks. So all kids, who weren't well or had this certain condition, and it was way cheaper. So I'd send my kids on those weeks saying, you know what, no punching, no hitting, you're going to murder someone. You got to be chill. You got to be chill. So yeah, I love it. I just all of it, and I think it's so cool that you get, all these kids with their first jobs and teaching them how to lead and how humor builds, that collaboration and that trust. Do you find that there's a lot of collaboration within the camp?
Oh, there has to be. One
Yeah.
thing that we do, I think a lot of camps do this, but mine in particular, we have most of our counselors, the people that are working directly with the kids, are between the ages of 16 and 21. Now, I will say our oldest employee is 99. And
That's
she's awesome too.
amazing.
So
What does
I'm
she
not.
do?
She's our bookkeeper.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she's the coolest person I've ever met. You should have her on the podcast.
Yes,
She's the
I would
best.
love that.
But the 16 to 21-year-olds, they tend to work in
Yeah,
groups of three because we have three counselors for each group of
right.
children, and they oftentimes become great friends, like lifelong friends, because they're doing this
Yeah,
really hard job together. But the crazy thing is that these groups, they always have a struggle. They always go through something,
right.
and they come out on the other side of it better for it, and probably better friends because of it. And I really think that they learn so much more being camp counselors than they would at any other job. Working at, let's say, working retail in a mall or working at a fast
Yeah,
food restaurant. They're responsible for other human beings that just happen
yeah,
to be a few years younger than them,
yeah.
and they have to learn how to communicate. They solve problems very quickly. They think on their feet,
Amazing.
and they learn how to make a decision, and they're doing it all without the use of their phones. So they're building these interpersonal, real human skills.
No phones at camp?
So
No phones at camp?
no phones at camp.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
great.
we're old school. Most
You're old.
a lot of camps aren't
Ain't no
are.
flies on us. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, it's really really hard to enforce, and we're probably not 100%. But the
Sure.
rule is no phones at camp. No phones while you're supervising
Do you
children, at
do you
least.
find that because you're working in that sort of multi-generational sort of atmosphere where you're not only dealing with children, you're dealing with kids and young adults, but then you're also dealing with their parents sometimes. And you find like when all that put together, do you find the humor obviously has to shift? It's know your audience, but do you find it works with any age group? You found that?
Humor works with any age group, and you certainly
Yeah.
have to adjust it. You have to know the right moment, because when you're talking to an upset parent, humor is
No.
not going to work there.
Yeah.
But I do find that when you're talking with parents, when you're beginning the relationship with them, you can use humor to build that trust, and that can buy you some credibility when you do have to have that difficult conversation about, the child that was hitting somebody else, and you have to uh, break that news to the parents. But you've
Yeah.
established the relationship beforehand. So when we give a lot of tours to prospective parents who are thinking of sending their kids to camp, and
Right.
we always use a fair amount of humor in those tours to get them to understand, like, this is the kind of place we are. We're a fun place, and yeah, we
Yeah.
do amazing things, but fun is at the top of the list of the things that we do.
That's amazing. What a great place to work. How did you come to own a summer camp?
Well, I don't own it. I wish I did.
Okay, okay.
But I started when I was 4 years old, and my sister
Going
and
to
I
this
went.
camp?
Yeah, yeah. My sister and I went to this
Wow.
camp. We were able to go because my father, who was a teacher, he worked at the camp. So you mentioned the cost of summer camp. It was even
Yeah.
expensive back then. So my father worked to offset that tuition, and I spent 11 years as a camper, seven
Wow.
years as a counselor, and at that point, I was graduating college, and I have an engineering degree, and I was. It was right about the time of an economic
You got the
downturn here.
valedictorian in engineering at university, right?
In my master's class, I did,
And you're
yes.
Matt, yeah, you brainiac.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll try
No,
not to
no,
bring
I
that up
love
too
it.
much.
Why?
Um,
I think that's so cool.
but we it was a re- it was an, I had a job, an IT, information technology consulting job lined up. I was
Yeah,
going into corporate America. I was going to have to wear a tie every day, which was like big on my list of stressors. But there was this
yeah.
economic downturn, and I never wound up starting that job. So I
Wow.
that's when I went back to school for my master's degree, and right around that time. Um, I was still working at camp in my summers, because what else was I going to do in my summers?
Yeah.
And they basically asked me to come on full time. And much to my mother's chagrin, I said yes to this very entry level position. And I kind of just brought my problem solving mindset, my engineering mindset to that
Right.
job. And 20 something years later, here I am
Yeah.
as a director of the camp, and I love
Wow.
it. I don't know what else to say, but I can't leave because I love it so much.
So, how many people do you have on your team when it isn't the summer? Like, how are you
Uh,
prepping? How are you like, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. We get that a lot. So it's very
Okay.
cyclical. So in September and October, we probably have about 10 people in the office.
Right.
It stays that way up until, beginning in March and April, we start to ramp up. And
Yeah.
uh, in June, by that time, we probably have about 25 people in the office every day. And then
Wow.
we kind of flip a switch. And the first day of camp, we have well over 500 employees.
That's
And
incredible.
it's very strange. Even
Yeah.
after all these years, going from 25 to 500 is really weird,
Yeah.
and then what's even weirder is dropping from 500 to 10. It's like a
Right.
ghost. It's like a ghost town the
Yeah.
day after camp ends. So yeah, it's a very strange feeling. I can't even describe it.
Hi, it's Kate. I can't believe you made it halfway through the show. Look, if you or anyone you know would like to be a guest on Humor in the C-Suite, I would love to have you. So email me, kate@katedavis.ca.
And do you find when you're working, obviously it's going to be different when you're working with 10 adults and then 500, it's our first job, 16 to 21-year-olds. And, I know their brains aren't actually all formed, their empathy parts and stuff like that. Do you find is it co-ed, the camp? I should ask that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're dealing with men and women within that. Do you find that you're having to like inject humor into that leadership approach when, you have 500, or is it like, we got to get this right,
It's very much it's both,
Yeah.
right? So we have core values. Our staff have core values, and one of the core values is I am a fun professional.
Oh, I
And it's
love
a
that.
very yeah, both in our setting, and I think in most settings, both parts are
Yeah.
important, the fun and the professional.
Yeah.
And what we find is when those younger staff come in, we have to switch right from dealing with adults to
Right.
dealing with younger people, and
Yeah.
our patience has to increase. So there are times where we have to say, hey, look on the back of your name tag, it has our six core values. This one says fun professional, and both are important. Right now, do you feel like you're being professional enough, or do you feel like
Right.
you're being fun enough? Because it
Yeah.
goes both ways, and striking that balance is very much a teachable moment for us on the leadership team. It takes
Yes.
for our new staff. It's a new experience for them, and it takes them time to understand that.
Yeah, and also most of them have probably been to camp as a kid, right? So now you're coming
Yeah.
into it as a leader, and I think that mind shift, especially at the beginning's got to be hard because you're no longer that kid who can, but you're that counselor that everyone is looking up to.
Yeah, most of our staff are former campers, so a lot of times they lean a little too heavily on the fun part. When you
Right.
when you go to basketball, if you're 16 years old and you're playing with 6-year-olds, you can have fun, but you
Yeah.
can't slam dunk on the 6-year-olds, right? That might be fun for you, but that's not fun for the child. So sometimes we go over all that stuff during our staff training. On the flip side, we sometimes have like a college student who's a psychology major, and they're coming in and they're thinking
Oh, I
that
love.
they're going to
Yeah.
be analyzing these children, and they're very much on the professional side, and we have to say, hey, that's great, you're going to learn a lot here, but it also has to be fun. Your
Yeah.
balance is off in this. So we have it both ways, and we have to be very, very patient with our staff. And the great thing, though, is that
Yeah.
by the second week of camp, 99% of them have it down. And it's just
Wow.
it's a cultural thing in our camp.
Yeah.
We have great role models. You learn from other people. You learn on the job, and most people really get it quite quickly, and that's also amazing to see.
That is amazing. And just like the fact that you're giving them that room to grow, right? I think is so important. I'm curious, um, how do you like when you're dealing with that, do you have any like advice or anything you can give, our future leaders maybe on how they can approach that? that, bringing humor into their leadership style and trusting it, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, my advice would be to start small, right?
Yeah.
When you're new somewhere, it's very easy to be labeled as the class clown, or not,
Yeah.
not a serious person, and I think that's a reality that we have to deal with. But use a little bit of humor, and then build up to it.
Right.
Um, as you get closer and closer to your colleagues, you'll know when you can push the boundaries a little bit. And then there's obvious things that we speak about in terms of boundaries with sexual orientation, and things like that, that
Yeah.
have to be said. I mean, they have to be said everywhere, but especially when you're dealing with younger people, teenagers, we have to be very clear about that. And they
Absolutely.
sometimes make mistakes, and I think that we have to be understanding and forgiving when it's an honest mistake, and not so understanding and forgiving when it's different from that.
Yeah. That's very, very well put, Matt. that that could have gone very sideways right there. No, good job.
We've had
Have you
these
ever
conversations many times, so.
have you ever had where it's actually misfired on you? And how have you recovered from that when, it was a misunderstanding when using humor?
Yeah, I think that happens to me probably on a daily basis, if I'm being honest. I my philosophy is just, when I make a mistake, I do my best to admit it very quickly and
Yeah.
apologize, and that's all I can do. Um, we're not perfect. I'm certainly not perfect, and um, I think you just have to be honest about it, apologize, and move forward.
Yeah. What's the biggest difference you've observed between a team that generally is comfortable with humor and one that's still building trust?
That's a good question. Um,
Yeah.
so you're asking what you can see from the outside looking in? What are the telltale
Yeah.
signs?
Like if
Yeah,
you have,
so
yeah, go on.
yeah, so this is definitely something that I've seen, and I think a pretty good answer for this is when a group of people doesn't feel safe around each other, you will see that they don't take risks. You will see very obvious things like people are afraid to speak up in a meeting. People are afraid
Yeah.
of being judged. They're not generating new ideas. They're not trying things that fail. Trying things that fail is a hallmark of very successful teams. Because
Yes.
if you don't try things that fail, you're not going to try things that succeed. So if you see things like that, you probably have a group of people that aren't feeling the necessary safety to thrive.
Yeah.
And I definitely see that and spot that with groups of campers, with groups of counselors, and then we have to intervene and take a bit of a closer look at what's going on there.
Yeah. You're a great boss, eh? Maybe I'll come work at the camp.
Do you have your summers free? We'd love. We're looking for a podcasting specialist.
Are you? That's so great.
We
Oh,
used to have
wow.
one. We don't have one right now, so we're open to
Oh,
it.
maybe I'll come live in New Jersey. Where's the camp?
It's 30 miles northwest of Manhattan.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's amazing. It's so funny to me because I have such fond memories at camp, but then I also have like some memories that were really like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. Like I remember being accused of stealing someone's stamps in our cabin, but I didn't. Right. And just being so like, this is outrageous. I think I still feel like, it could have been a murder charge and I would have felt the same way. And it was only stamps. Like you take everything so seriously when you're little. Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's this completely enclosed environment, right? Like you're
yeah,
cut off from the world when you're
it's like
there.
you're on
Um,
traders.
yeah, I mean, everyone has such vivid, strong memories of camp, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things I love about it. Is just it's a life shaping experience for so many
Yeah.
people.
And bringing that life-shaping experience for so many people, it with your books that you've written into the workplace, into the corporate environment, I think is so powerful. because, that child self within all of us that was willing to take risks, that was really, I mean, kids laugh 300 times a day. Adults on average laugh about 15, and it's like, when do we lose that? When do we lose ourselves in that? And I think this is, I was so excited for this just because of that, Matt. Like, it's just so powerful to me how you're shaping so many people, not only the 10 in the office all year round, but then going to 500 and then plus all the campers. You all of a sudden you have this village that you're leading.
Yeah, and so the first book that I wrote, the Summer Camp MBA, is more specific to camp, but anyone that's leading or employing teenagers or young adults can definitely
Yeah.
learn from it. But the the motivation behind the campfire effect was I people would ask me all the time, why are you still at camp? What is it about camp? Why do you love it so much? And my
Yeah.
answer was always, I could explain it to you in 3 hours, but I can't explain it to you in 30 seconds. So
Right.
I'm just going to skip that question. So I actually, it was kicking around in my mind for a long time about like writing a book
Yeah.
about it. And I started doing some research. And one thing that I realized unexpectedly was that everything we do at camp to make it such a magical place, a special place, a place of growth, can be done anywhere, in a family, in a
Oh,
school, in a workplace. So that was kind of
yeah.
the motive, what the book turned into. It's not a book for camp people really, because camp
Yeah.
people already know all this stuff. It's for
Right.
the rest of the world to bring some of this, because I get parents coming up to me all the time saying, my child is the best version of themselves during the summer. Why can't
Oh,
school be that way? They're
yeah.
they're nicer, they're kinder, they're open to new ideas during the summer. And then in the school year, they're not the same way. And
Yeah.
that's a real thing that happens. And it happens because of the way that camp is structured.
Yes.
This feeling of happiness, this feeling of joy, this feeling of trust. Um, People can do better things when they feel that way.
Absolutely. They can, yeah, they can take those risks, whether it's climbing up something or going on the water and trying something new and bringing that to your jobs, I think is really powerful. And especially as a leader, creating that environment, right? So that's absolutely amazing. Do you find it's different with your family and dealing with them, or are you the same guy?
I think I'm the same person, but it's different. It's different.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly why, but I think it's because at camp, like, I'm clearly in charge, and in my family, like, I don't think I'm very much in charge at all.
No,
Like, my
no,
wife
you're
is
not.
definitely in charge. Uh, Actually, my 2-year-old is certainly in charge.
Yeah.
So I think that has a little bit to do with it. But
Yeah.
I do like to bring a lot of that silliness to everything that I do. I'm not afraid to be
Amazing.
silly. I'm not
Yeah.
afraid to. I'm not afraid to demoralize myself, make a fool out of
Yeah.
myself.
Okay. What benefits have you personally experienced from incorporating humor into your daily life?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, everything. I
Yeah.
mean, I love
Health
my
wise.
job. I
Yeah.
I think I think I just love, you know, at in the summer at camp, it is a grueling physical job. I
Sure.
I wake up at 5 in the morning. I don't get back home until 9 o'clock at night. I'm first eating dinner typically, and so it is grueling. And I think the way that we get through it, it's similar to running a marathon. And the humor, the energy, the joy, the laughter, that builds up endorphins and gives us the energy to keep going, the way that
Going.
the runners have a runner's high. It's the same thing. I mean, if
Yeah.
you said to someone, hey, do you want to spend every day in excessive heat outdoors for 8 hours a day,
Around
dealing with
bugs.
crazy problems that you could never think of, and getting no sleep and working like crazy, you'd be like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to do that. But
Oh my
but
gosh. But I love it.
right, and it's
Yeah.
just the chemical, the endorphins. It's
Yeah.
just such a positive, and you're doing it with people you love,
Yeah.
and that's the key thing there.
Okay, Matt. One last question, which is always the way we end the podcast. Do you have a story about the funniest thing that's ever happened to you?
I will share a story. I don't know if it's the funniest thing. It's really putting me
Okay,
on the
but yeah.
spot. but I'll share I'll share a silly story. So for about 20 years, there was another person that worked at my camp that was also named Matt, and he was in charge of the older boys, the teenage boys, and on parent visiting nights, we'd often stand next to each other. We had our name tags on, and people would walk by and they'd be like, "Oh, two Matts," and it would happen like 15 times a night, and or someone would say Matt squared, and they think that was clever, and that would happen a
Yeah.
lot. But one time, this is the furthest it ever went. One time, I was meeting a parent. I had my name tag on. They were coming to pick up their son, and the mom came over to me and she said, "I just want to thank you for giving my son a great summer," which is not
Oh,
terribly unusual. I get that a lot.
yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, no problem." And then she took a step closer and said, "What you guys have done for him is really amazing." So I said, "Oh, well, it's been our pleasure to have him." Um, and then she started to cry and she gave me a hug and said, he hasn't been the same child since we had that conversation. You changed his life." And I had never had a conversation
Oh my
with
God.
her about her son, and this was
Say that?
clearly the other Matt talking
Matt.
to her.
Yeah.
um, and now I had a crying mom hugging me, and I looked to my right about probably 100 feet away, and the other Matt was just looking at me laughing. He knew exactly what was going on.
Oh
So
yeah. Did you give it away? No.
I did
I was
not. I was too far into
no.
it. I
Yeah.
mean, she was crying. What was I gonna
Yeah. You're hugging. You can't. Yeah. You're welcome. I'm amazing.
do? Yeah.
No, that's great. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast Humor in the C-Suite. I've had a lot of different guests, a lot of different industries, but I love this analogy of everything we do at camp can be done in the office, in schools. And why isn't it? Because those really are our happiest memories. And we have that choice to make it those environments, to build an environment of trust and vulnerability and all those things that we've talked about. So I've actually really enjoyed this.
Thank you for having me. I
Yes.
appreciate it. I had a great time. And I agree with everything you said about we can bring humor, we can bring joy, we can bring all these things to any
Yeah.
organization, any group of people, anywhere.
Yes. Yes. Preach.